I'm Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. And I'm here because it is my life's work to assist others in keeping their vibration high. And the reason why that's my mission is because it keeps me accountable for keeping my own vibration high. So I do this work right alongside with you guys, and I've been guided to share. And I'm not necessarily in the know of everything, but I'm really appreciative for what does come through, and I'm pleased with the work that I'm able to present, and I just like to continue to be in my space to be able to do this kind of work. So it keeps me accountable, and it keeps me in my work just as much. And that's what I love about this journey, is you can't really get stuck on something that works for you, because we're always evolving and changing. So you have to just continually evolve and change and grow if you're on a spiritual path. There's no like, let me just master a workshop, raise your vibration, and just do that forever, because there's more, and every day there's more. So that's why the work is continuous. So I really dedicate so much of my time and energy to this 24/7. That's just it, just 24/7 now. And it requires me to constantly be in a state of trust and faith, because, again, there's a lot of people that aren't really aware of this journey, and they kind of latch on to specific tools that media or society says is going to help them to be happier or thinner or have a better relationship. But a lot of people don't really understand the refinement that it takes to really be on this path. And that's okay. That's okay. But again, my mission is full potential as soon as possible. Even though I know that time is an element of this journey as well. But I know that if you're willing to go slightly deeper, that the rewards can be even greater. But navigating a spiritual journey alongside with a 3D life is really hard. And I understand that people like the 3D world at times, and there's ways that we can make ourselves feel more comfortable, whether it's something healthy or something destructive. And sometimes there can be this element of, I just really don't have time to invest in myself like that. And I equally get that, as I do feel very sad about that, because I think that it is our main mission here not to attain wealth and status and things, but our goal here is to attain a level of spiritual awareness where we can really truly be free on earth and not have to die to feel free. So that being said, there's a ton of people who know that there's things in their life that they're really not settled with, but they just settle with the fact that, well, this is life, and I've been married this long, and this is my job, and I just have to do it, and they just continue on that way. And I'm here as an individual who's trying to get out that message that you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But it's very, very difficult, because people are so embedded and programmed to think, well, no, what do you mean I can't just quit my job? That doesn't make any sense, and I can't go out and do this somewhere else. And they will literally talk me blue in the face and themselves blue in the face because they believe that they can't. And I know that they absolutely can. And it's just like breaking down that conditioning. And some people are like rocks, and we have to love those people. And for some reason, I've got some rocks in my life that I constantly try to like chisel away at. And but that keeps me in my center and keeps me humble, and helps me to focus on the fact that I'm not here to change people. I'm here just to live in my authenticity, and if there's some sort of inspiration or interaction that takes place between us that can shift both of us or either one of us for the better, then that's a gift. But being a light worker, or whatever you want to label it as, there's this constant desire to want to help and heal and change people, because you have the ability to see within them what you've corrected and healed within yourself. So you feel like this need to be like, I can fix your life for you, I swear, and just give me like 2 days and I can fix everything. And yeah, people don't really, aren't really on board with that. Every now and then, maybe you'll get somebody who's like, okay, let's my life is just chaos, and I'm ready, I've tried everything, right? And that's usually when people come to the spiritual path. really, is really when you're like, yeah, I've tried all this stuff and it doesn't work, so I need something greater, right? So, yeah, that's me. And as you can see, the show up and the turn up with these workshops is sometimes good and sometimes really small. But I know that whoever is in this space, it's like a complete honor to me. Like whether it's just one person, it's a complete honor to me because I know that the interaction that takes place between those souls is destined and it's meant to be. And again, I don't believe, unfortunately, that there are a ton of people currently maybe in the Allentown or the Lehigh Valley that are fiercely dedicated like this, because so many of us are just still really entrenched in the program, and I love them all very, very much. And that's why I'm hoping that doing more stuff digitally can at least help people to come out without not really knowing what to expect or having fear to come out, or just again sheer like laziness or tiredness, or I don't feel like working on myself today. I'm gonna sleep. So like I'm hoping this digital stuff can start to, I share it, everybody's on social media. So I mean, honestly, that's the way we're moving. Mm-hmm. I don't even know, what I'll do with this space down the road. Who knows? Hopefully I can be here to do workshops, but I think it's probably mostly, we're moving really towards a digital age, unfortunately. But what's nice is, Beth and I have talked about this before, where there's an element of energy that can be exchanged through media. I was telling Beth about writing a book, and energy can be exchanged through writing a book as well. But I think sometimes a visual element of an energy, even through media, computer, TV, can create a pretty profound shift in somebody. Obviously, one-on-one is the best. There's no blockages to the energy exchange, and that's why I really love to talk to people face-to-face, live, because there is a buzz. There's something that happens when there's no TV screen between us, or realms between us, or pages between us. But that doesn't mean that it's not being transmitted other ways as well. Does that make sense to you guys? Mm-hmm. Do you guys have anything you want to say about that? Anything I just said?
Recently that picture that you have of the bull, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's an artist that I found that she has visions that she puts on in her art, and that there's energy that she imbues in these prints that she creates. So when you receive it, she said no two are exactly alike, and but when you look at, there is an energy that, like she said, an exchange. There is that element to that art, and I think that's true. I think that we can listen to music or view images or read certain materials where there is that energy contained in those words. And I think some of the texts that have been saved, or from different cultures about spirituality, like just reading those words, I think that's a lot of it. I think there is an energy contained in those.
I want to just expand upon what you just said, because something just came to me. I think it's with which the intention that's put into it. And I think that's helping us to realize, like, the digital age might actually be helping us to realize that this unforeseen energetic force is super duper powerful. And if somebody is doing something, writing a book, creating a piece of art, and they're actually exuding that real high density intention into it, that it can be really transmitted, right? So, cool, awesome. Anything else you guys want to say? No? Do you think
I just think it makes it super accessible, like you said, for anyone who's not willing at the moment, or maybe it just didn't work out, that they can rewatch it, and
right.
we can rewatch it. So yeah, it's always there.
Yeah,
which is cool.
yeah, it is cool. Yeah, it's funny because growing up, I remember little things about myself that I didn't care for about myself. When you grow up, like one thing that always surprised me was my voice. And I remember leaving a message on my answering machine, right? Back when we had answering machines. And I would always hear myself, and I would say, is that me? Is that my voice? It doesn't sound like me. And of course, the voice that I heard not coming through me, but through a recorder, never sounded as pleasing to me. I was like, oh, my voice, it doesn't really sound that great. But then as I started to just talk and go into this field and teach yoga and all that stuff, I was so like overwhelmed and had so much gratitude for, there'd be individuals that would come up to me and say, you have such a beautiful voice. And I remember thinking like back to the you know, the tape recording days, like really? Because I don't hear it that way. But you know, it's a lot about perception. But very often, like if Beth posts something, you know, if you see yourself, a lot of times people will say, oh, I did a TV show or a recording and I don't even want to watch it. Like I won't even watch it. And when Beth posts something, like at times I'll just kind of click on and be like, okay, I just want to like see what it's like. And I find myself like, I'm like, ooh, I like this content. I'm just gonna watch. And I just feel, I'm like, wow, like that's such a shift for me, because it is so much more about the content, the intention, and what you're talking about than like maybe the voice itself. And maybe that's actually what people are feeling, is like the content and the energy and the intention, and not necessarily the voice, so to speak. I don't know.
No, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else before we start? Okay, so this workshop is called Beyond the Matrix. So I have a lot of stuff written down, and there was some other stuff that I wanted to read, but I think that we can just dialogue between this information and go where we need to go. I like to be very kind of off the cuff with stuff, even though I do write stuff down. But I did post on my site that it was like a prereq to have come to the Raise Your Vibration workshop. And obviously it wouldn't matter. But again, for me, I get very excited to be able to expand upon what we already talked about. And it's kind of difficult, you guys know, just like if you teach an intermediate or advanced yoga class and you have beginners, you're gonna have to shift everything, which is, there's a beauty in that as well. But because you guys already attended that other workshop, we can go a little bit deeper. So first of all, did you guys all see the movie The Matrix?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in your opinion, what is The Matrix?
The Matrix? Well, I guess it would just be like this reality that we're presented with every single day when we wake up. And we go out and we go to our jobs and we buy things and we, you know, work to attain like a specific physical thing, whatever that physical thing may be, whether it's like a physical relationship that you have with someone, or like a house, or, you know, a material object, or a specific job. Like, it's all of what we see, like, without really looking. We just wake up and we see it, and that's it.
So you said this reality we're presented with.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the presenter?
I don't know. I guess just like, I don't know. That's so
Ooh.
that's such a good question. Because you could say like,
Who's running the show here?
Right. Like you could say it's, you know, society
or
or like our government is like pushing things on us so that we can. But really, like what? I have no idea, because they're just a part of it as well. You
The
know?
human experience.
What do you think, Kathy? What would you define the Matrix as for you?
For me, the Matrix is an experience. It's not reality. So it's a construct within which we experience this physical world, this pseudo-reality.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in the Matrix, it was designed to keep us functional and content while we served another purpose. at least in the movie, right? We were batteries, but in order for those batteries to keep on working, mentally we had to be kept content. Otherwise, we would die. So this reality was created for us to be able to, I guess, not go insane, but to operate within, to experience this reality. And now, I don't think that for us, it's really so much so sinister, as much as it is. This is one reality in which the divine experiences itself. So we're really way beyond that, but right now this is our experience as a spiritual being, as the divine. Because in my belief, we're all the divine. Everything together is the divine. But this reality, as we think of it, it is the way we are able to navigate and understand as spiritual beings in a physical body, how we are able to navigate it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yes.
Good.
And we ain't even had breakfast yet.
Yeah.
Hey, Christy. All right, so that was incredible. That was deep.
Yeah.
What did you guys think about that?
Yeah, that was really, it just like opened my eyes to like a totally different way of looking at it. Like, it was,
But you were treading down the same path. You were
Yeah.
saying a very similar.
But I think that, like, I just felt like you had just through your experiences, like, had just like a deeper understanding that you could like articulate it better. Like, I had like this sort of vague understanding of like, this is what I feel about it, but like, I don't really know, and I feel like you've gone into it like a little bit deeper.
Well, and what you said is, you know, like the things that we do, the routines, the sub-programs that we all follow as in the Matrix. It was a program, right? That we go into our jobs, following our daily tasks, always thinking about doing the next thing and the next activity, where you're not really silent or observant of what's happening. You're just doing it and following all these things that you do, and that keeps us in the program, keeps us content, so to speak, so that we are not overwhelmed by the deeper knowledge that this is not all that we are.
Right.
Because if this is not all that we are, what are we?
Right.
And that is a profoundly uncomfortable question.
Right.
For us. So if we sit in that for too long, sometimes we implode.
You might go crazy.
And I knew one lady, a good friend of mine, who worked at a mental facility, and she worked with one schizophrenic who said, it's not that the voices in my head aren't real, it's just that not everyone else can hear them. And I think that, and he said he worked with a Buddhist monk to figure out how to work with what he was hearing. So what I'm trying to say is that for individuals who really are suddenly aware of and can't block that awareness to other dimensions and other realities and voices or whatever it is they're aware of, sometimes that's so overwhelming they can't function in this world. Or as in the movie, like basically they would just die. They wouldn't be able to
hold that energy. And I know that there's been times where I've actually experienced that, where I have to ask my creator, the God of your own unique understanding, can you give me a second here? Like, can you let me process this a second? Because I'm a little bit on overload. And it's weird because the tendency for us all is to be very impatient with our growth and our process and to want to get there quicker. You got to be careful what you ask for, because sometimes if you are downloaded and you're downloaded again and you don't have that ability to really process it all, even though you want it, it gets a little overwhelming. And there have been several times where I've had to say, can you slow down for a moment, please? Like, let me process this. Because it gets really, your mind starts to bend in ways. And obviously when you start a spiritual path, even in the beginning stages, there can be those elements where you sit back and everybody else is calling you crazy, and then you sit back and say, am I? Or am I the only one that's actually insane? And they're all now out of sane. Like, that's kind of, and then you're dealing with that. And it can really be a mental overload. You have to be ready and discerning and that's kind of the upside down that happened to me. Was I really wanted the spiritual growth, and I wanted to, work towards enlightenment and keep studying 24/7 and overload and overload and overload and overload and overload. And then all of a sudden one day it flipped, and whoever was like, all right, you really want this? Because I'll give it to you. And then I was like, oh wait, I'm like on my knees, like, give me mercy, please. I need a moment to think about this. So I totally agree with you. I mean, obviously, I look at, you guys all know I'm really passionate about the correlation between science and spirit and healing and working on the soul and the spiritual self in the mission to heal. And, I have a totally different view on every illness, especially psychological illness. They might just be geniuses that we try to control, or they have just, maybe their lifetime experience that we're witnessing is them on overload, and that's what their soul chose to do in this incarnation. And they might be, I see, I have people in my family that deal with schizophrenia and things like that, and there are times where they're ecstatic people, and like we're trying to control the energy. Mm-hmm. Same with similar things can be said along the lines of autism and the spectrum is we want to control them into something that society can accept. And a lot of times when we just allow them to be different and be their self and be out of control, there's not a problem. It's just they're different and we feel uncomfortable with how they are. So we feel as though they don't fit into society's constructs and we need to medicate them and change them. And that's when the aggression can come. So I have a lot of different opinions, but still to this day, a lot of people might look at this kind of stuff as being really out there and really crazy. You start talking like galactic beyond this realm and people are like, whoa, you lost me there. And it becomes very, very sci-fi. And, I've never been interested in so much sci-fi until I went onto this spiritual journey because I realized that shit's all real. I was like, oh my gosh, these people create this stuff. George Lucas, Star Wars, and Avatar. And I'm like, they all are in the know. And they're just sharing their information, and everybody's like, whoa, what an amazing fictional tale, and it's so sci-fi. And I'm like, wow, that's how they do it. That's where their genius comes from, is like reality. It's not like made up, What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think some of our, at least science fiction-wise, greatest tales come from that place where they are inspired by that knowledge and experience within themselves, even if they're not fully conscious of it. That's where it's coming from.
It's coming from that source. Same with the ancient religious texts. Again, I've never had so much respect. I mean, I grew up Christian, and I definitely believe in God and source, but I've never had so much respect for the Bible. And the perception that I have around it, I'm like, whoa, this is the same thing that happened to me. It's just being perceived by different people very differently. And unfortunately, that's creating a lot of blockages with people when they follow things so literally and it controls their perception of reality, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Beth, did you have anything you wanted to say about your opinion on what the Matrix is?
What the Matrix is? Basically what everyone else is saying, anything that's like 3D, the habits we have, the human experience. And I think the Matrix is also like, it doesn't have to be necessarily a negative thing. It's learning lessons to help us get into a higher place and things that we have to go through in order to get there. Or we would already be there.
Yeah. Been in the spiritual community, and I don't want this to trigger. I'm sure it will trigger. Plus, things that I say, I guess we're gonna trigger. I gotta let it go. But he was saying that when he does his conventions, and he had, I'm talking, 300,000 views on his video. This guy's, gets around online. But he was speaking at a hotel, and he was saying that just one of the things that came out about authenticity and truth with the Matrix and things like this was that people ask him, how much do you want to do your thing? And he says nothing. He says, give what you want, donation, or pay for my flight or hotel, and I'm good. And he said even in the spiritual realm and the construct we have around that, he mentioned a name of a very profound, highly respected spiritual teacher, it was Wayne Dyer, who passed away, and who has wonderful, beautiful material. But he was saying even Wayne Dyer requires $50,000 to come out for a seminar. And again, it kind of triggered something within me when he said that, because there's such an issue around money and abundance, and that balance of, well, this material is deserving of an energetic exchange, and people need to live and pay bills. And I kind of, I didn't think any less of him because he required a substantial amount for his work. His work is beautiful, right? I mean, there's thousands and thousands of other people out there doing much less, more intentional work and getting paid way more money. This is a lot of the power imbalance we have in this country, in this world. But also, the gentleman who was saying, this guy, I think his name was George, I'll let you know who it is if you're interested. The video was great. But he was saying, that's not my mission, is to be here to gain material wealth with my work. He's like, I'm just so passionate about sharing the knowledge. But then conversely, he also said, I'm not doing the best financially. He's like, but I'm fulfilled and I'm very, very happy, and I feel the richest I could ever be within. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where it made me think, because I've often struggled with, not struggled, but always kind of felt I was just kind of getting by financially. I grew up in that kind of thing. So it was always something where I felt like I had to work harder to feel more secure and stable, but also I wasn't really good at asking financially. A lot of times, for workshops, I just say donation, whatever. But there's just it was an interesting concept how, there was a spiritual teacher who was saying, well, this is what I charge. And then there was another teacher who was kind of saying, I feel so rich within just showing up. And again, I could see both sides a little bit. And I didn't think any less of either of them for doing whatever. But it was just kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yes.
All right. So here it says, unfortunately, nobody can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. So that was a quote from the Matrix. And for me, I was brought to this knowledge, as everybody's brought to knowledge like this differently, right? And I don't expect anybody else to be brought to this knowledge or wisdom the same way that I do. Everybody's brought to it differently at different times, whatever their personal journey is. But for me, I didn't really know what the Matrix was prior to really me starting to awaken on a deeper level. Again, I was that person who watched the movies and it was this is a great story. I didn't connect the dots really until something more powerful awakened for me. I mean, I've been going through many spiritual awakenings my whole existence, a lot through my illness in my 20s, and life or death experiences really amplify things. But it really was in 2015 when things became very, very clear very, very quickly. Beautiful, but scary at the same time. But that was when I really started to see the deeper underlying messages behind all this stuff. And that was really when I started to figure out really what the Matrix was for me. And as you guys said, you all said it really beautifully. It's a program. That's how I feel. It's a program that we are brought into. To me, because of my background in religion, I relate it a lot to Jesus' experience and the experience through the Bible of that we wake up, we are born into sin, or we are born with a veil over our eyes, and we're brought into this world where there's all different sorts of programs and scenarios and situations and stories and allegories of Jonah and the whale and all these experiences. And I'm yeah, that's exactly what the spiritual awakening journey is, and it's just being told slightly differently. And this idea of being born again and getting baptized, and first of all, getting baptized is, to me, comparable to something like a 3D physical wedding. Now, those are two very, very different topics. I'm going to try to weave together getting married and being baptized, but it's something that we choose. It's something where on the 3D earth, we as a human being selects the time and place that we'll be baptized, or our parents do, or if we're not baptized. And same thing with our wedding. It's we kind of choose the person from the best of our ability and have a man-made contract, very three-dimensional, which there's nothing wrong with that. There can be spiritual experiences interwoven between both of those experiences. But being, born again, I know that's slightly different than, I guess being baptized might be like, I don't know, when you're born again, when you're washed away from your sins. But a lot of times, as a child, when that typically happens, you don't have the emotional intelligence to wipe your slate clean. It's just your parents do it because it's part of the program. It's part of what we're supposed to do, is baptize our child, right? But does your child really have the intelligence and awareness to exit out of the matrix at that time and really release the veil? Is there some sort of intention behind it, and do spiritual things potentially happen in the church in that setting? Probably. But for me, I was baptized. I don't remember anything about being baptized other than that there was water involved, right? I think I was baptized slightly later in life. I forget how old I was, but I wasn't a baby. I don't think. Sorry, Mom and Dad, I don't remember. But and I remember later in life, as I was maybe in my teens, there was this whole resurgence of like, are you born again? Are you a born again Christian? And it was kind of where you kind of went back into the church in my history, and you asked again to be saved. Okay, so it's almost like maybe like a number 2 level, like level 2. All right, well now I'm going back into the church and I'm going to ask God for forgiveness and ask Him to save me, right? And again, it wasn't something that came through me. It was something that was brought to my attention through other means. So it was through the church and through maybe even the societal pressure of like, are you born again? Do you want to stand up in front of the whole congregation and tell everybody that you want to be saved, right? I remember I was like, no, I'm not ready to stand up and do that. But I think, probably through the energy and the pressure, I probably asked God again to, please allow me into your kingdom and, save me. Part of how I grew up, and part of how a lot of people grow up if they're in the religious program, that's a workshop I gotta have, is kind of deconditioning, the family history, especially around programmed religion, because a lot of times, depending on how it's brought through the family, it can end up you will go the polar opposite direction until you really truly find the truth. And then a lot of people even go atheist or just say that's no, and they rebel, and because it's so dysfunctional. So there needs to be a lot of healing around things like religion that we were brought up in, I know for me, and there's a lot of ritualistic religious stuff that's really, really screwed up. And it really screws up with a lot of people. I know for me, you guys, I know a little bit of this history where there was a massive contradiction in my life around religion. And it was, one day I could listen to music, the next day I couldn't. And it all depended on, it had nothing to do with God. It depended on the means the form with which it was coming through, which was that of my father, who was promoting the inconsistency. It wasn't the religion, it wasn't God who was inconsistent, it was him. And that's all I had to go by, because I didn't have that intelligence to just be at one with God in that moment at that age. So it was very inconsistent, and there was a huge contradiction my whole childhood of, well, we can do this, we can't do that, or telling me how to be, but then they're not being that way. That's a good one. Parents really like to do that, do as I do, or do as I say and not as I do. Right. And that's highly dysfunctional. It can really shift a young person's perception of reality and right and wrong, right? Do you guys have anything you want to say on that? Because I'm sure you probably have a little something you want to say on that. Beth, I know you do. Maybe.
Yeah, just I was in that program. I mean, I know Lindsay too. And yeah, it's just funny. The same thing happened to me. Like, once I was able to like choose what I wanted to do, it was like the complete opposite. It was like not going to church. Like, I don't believe any of that because it seems like really judgmental and like like, oh, everyone only gets one chance. This doesn't seem fair, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Judgment was a big thing that went
like,
through my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, this sounds so judgmental, and I am not following this God who, gives you one chance, and you're gonna go to hell if you make one mistake. And I was like, I finally got to that point where I was like, Yeah, I don't really think that's my God.
Yeah. Or like think about other people's like. I think I would ask my mom like, what about the people who like haven't heard this? She's like, well, everyone has heard it like one time before they die. I was like, they get to hear it one time, and then I was like, wait, what?
Choose.
I did that too. I started questioning the
Yeah.
crap out of my parents, my dad, and that's probably what they need, is someone to step in. We talked about that at Union and Finch with Chris a little bit, how you start questioning the parents, and then they have to try to come up with these answers that they don't really know, and they're trying to make the best possible, give you the best possible reaction to what you're asking them. And then sometimes it just becomes something where you just let it go, and you just realize, well, that's how they're going to be. They don't really know the answer. That's how they're going to be. So I'm just going to avoid this topic altogether because they're not giving me the true, accurate answers that are making me feel comfortable with this template.
Yeah, or just like loving everyone, but they have like very conservative views, so it's not actually everyone.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I don't think they would say that, but you could just tell from how they act and what they say. But if you were to come out and actually like say like, oh, well, so do you love everyone? They'd be like, yeah, of course. Like that's what it says in the Bible. So yeah, contradictions, a lot. Contradictions, judgment.
That's actually interesting that you said that in particular, because when I was growing up, politically, like we were taught something that was completely different from my mom, than what was, I think, being projected by, because I grew up Catholic, what was being projected by the Catholic Church when I was younger was something that was taught completely different than what my mom would teach us. So it was more like, my mom sort of, and I'm sure she would just be like, what? But she kind of taught me to like learn from what the church was telling me, but also being able to kind of maintain like your curiosity and your free will to decide things for yourself. So that actually almost pushed me in this direction of like, well, I'm gonna separate myself from that because I want to figure out like other things. And that's when I really got into like learning about philosophy and reading like different books on that, because it was just, and my mom would always just be like, okay, well, here's a rosary for like when you're ready, and I'm just like, okay, well, whatever. But like now I kind of see that like she unintentionally like pushed me to be curious about like my own thoughts and how I just perceive myself spiritually. Yeah, and it was like, and I always, when I was younger, of course, I'd be like, Mom, I don't believe this, like, stop pushing your religion on me, but she was really just, she wasn't so much pushing a specific religion on me, but just pushing this, like, concept of faith. Like, that was always, like, she always said, like, you just have to have faith in what you believe in. And that's, like, really beautiful, because I think that's super important when you go through life, especially going through like hard times. It's like you just have to have faith in whatever your journey is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I used to think of like my upbringing in this religious community as kind of negative, but now I just see it was just another vehicle in which I like learned to become myself. Through that. Yeah.
And that's like the main message, is that at the end of the day, was the distortion real? Yes. Was the feelings around those emotions real, and the contradiction and the judgment? Sure. But like at the end of the day, the eagle-eye perception is, that's what we chose to incarnate into for our own soul's evolution. So that's the whole thing too, where, and this is just in general, not just based around religion, is that we can hold so much animosity towards people in our life and situations and bad bosses and spouses and relationships, and like you gotta start to wake up from like the spiritual infancy and realize like, hey, don't you remember you chose this? Like you did this.
Right.
But it's very hard for somebody to be like, what do you mean I did it? I didn't do it. This person's a complete jerk, and just complete zero accountability. I mean, there's a forgetfulness, obviously, but what does that energetically feel like? childish, negative, low density. It's not my fault. I'm fine. It's everybody else that's screwed up. My life. How come I'm around all these assholes all the time?
Yeah.
Because you need to wake up. Because
Yeah.
remember, you chose that, right? And that is just so triggering for so many people. But if you looked at life that way, your whole life would change. You'd come across a real jerk and you'd be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for showing me this. I forgot about you. I forgot you were coming in. And wow, I got to shift something about my perception. Like life would be
Yeah.
so different.
There are definitely situations in which people are like forced into really dark places
Yeah.
that they maybe didn't so much have control of the forcing of them being pushed into those places, but it's all about then how you decide to get yourself out of that and how you decide to end up receiving that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a really, really, really long time to be like, okay, like I have a choice. I can either continue to just feel victimized by like this situation that I was forced into, or I can like pull myself out of this.
Yeah.
And I can be like, kind of like honoring that like dark part and saying like, wow, there's a reason that this happened, but that reason is so much bigger than like
It is.
everything
Yeah.
else that I'm feeling right now while I sit here. So
And then the issue is, this is the same thing with, having the walk-ins, I call them. So if you're lucky enough to have perception around, this situation is not healthy for me. That's the thing, a lot of people don't even have that level of consciousness. And that's really, we'll get into this later, but that's all spiritual ascension is. It's just you being more aware. It's delayering awareness, that's all it is, and stepping up in your consciousness. But some people don't even realize, they just think they're like you said, they're just completely victimized by situations and circumstance and people. And why do I keep why does this keep coming into my life? Oh my gosh, I'm no part of this at all. But once you have the awareness around, okay, wait a minute here. Like this has happened now more than once. I'm kind of seeing a pattern here. Like maybe I need to address something. But then the issue is, do you really fully delayer it yourself? Or do you have a walk-in? And that's, again, some other circumstance, situation, job, individual, whatever, that creates that same feeling in you because the wound isn't really truly healed. So maybe it's just as bad as the first situation because you just didn't get the message at all. Say a relationship, for instance. I always talk about how certain women, why do I keep attracting this kind of jerk into my life or this particular person in my life? We're not quite getting the message with what we're being taught there. Relationships are all lessons. But maybe you kind of get it, and then you move on to the next relationship, and it's not as severe, but there's still similar clearing that needs to take place. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of like a delayering. Or you just get it, and then you move on to the next lesson,
Yeah.
So, what else do you guys want to say about that?
I was just gonna say, even if you are physically like in this 3D realm, like trapped in something like a job, like you signed a contract and like you literally can't leave, you always have the freedom of your attitude and your perception. So that's the one thing that can't be taken away from you, which is
That is
always
right.
good to tell yourself as well, myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful, beautiful point, is that sometimes it is not the smartest thing for you to do to just quit your job. Sometimes that needs to happen, but sometimes it's just not, right? And so then your other option is, well, then I better change my attitude around it and see if I can shift my perception and master my own reality that's not the best until I feel like I'm ready to step into potentially something different. So again, that whole idea of my job sucks.
Yep.
It's also your fault. I feel like you can master mentally, you can start to master your own mental realm and be in a state that seems completely psychotic and navigate yourself. Again, you always have another choice, but if you feel like you're not ready to step up or shift to another reality, then get right in your mind and do something mentally to recognize. For me, I did that same thing. I remember back in the day, I had countless waiting table jobs, which paid the bills, but I was never fully happy there. I knew that wasn't my destiny, but I needed the money. and I was in school, and I had other things going on and circumstances. So back then, I had to either be miserable at my jobs because I wasn't fully fulfilled, or change my perception in my job. And I just remember telling myself, this is not my destiny. This is temporary. I'm here, and I'm going to try to learn the lessons I need to learn here. And then again, I would de-layer that in those situations. So I wouldn't just say to myself, all right, this is temporary. Maybe that works for some people, but for me, I'm always into going deeper. So I would say, well, how can I master this situation and see what lessons I need to learn to help to move the timelines a little faster to where maybe I can get a better position or a better job somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So I tried to look even deeper, like, what am I here to learn? That's always what I ask myself. If I'm in a difficult situation, first of all, no victim mentality, never now. And then to just also say this is temporary, this challenge, and then for me now I'm at the point where something challenging really happens, I immediately have that connection with God, and I'm like, what do I gotta learn? Like what are we learning here, because I'm not really like enjoying this, and what are we learning here? And you do have more control over your timeline than you may think. But again, I do believe in Creator, in Infinite, in Source, and you will be in that situation for as long as you need to be until you can find your own way out, so to speak. Are there random situations where people win the lottery and then they're like, okay, I don't have to work a day in my life again? Yeah, sure, but that's like far and few between. That you can just escape something completely without doing any work. Right. And we all know, we've seen those, like, I know back in the day when I had TV, there was like, there was a show called like Life After the Lottery or something like that. And a lot of people end up in really precarious situations after they're just handed a lot of money. You just realize that your problems are not all solved. Mm-hmm. Maybe there are a couple who are just living the high life, like whatever lifetime they're on, I don't know, their last maybe, where they're just like in a utopia. But very often that kind of quick money coming into that and you not being ready. I mean, we see this a lot, unfortunately, in the in the sports world, is people are coming from nothing financially, and then they're giving wads of money, and some really strange and unfortunate stuff can happen in those circumstances if you don't have really solid people around you that are helping you navigate that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. What else?
Her and you talking about not feeling like a victim, and you may have said that as well. It's like my firm belief, at least for myself, is that nothing happens to us in this matrix or this reality without our permission. Yeah. Divine does not let us go through anything we did not agree to beforehand. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that what we experience here is both for our own benefit, our own ascension, our own growth, but also for others. Yeah. So that there is a purpose to the experiences that we go through and that which we agree to go through. And then you were mentioning, your perspective, how you look at things differently. So for me, that's been huge. Is always remembering that, looking at when something happens, saying, all right, I'm not a victim here. No, this isn't happening to me because life's unfair. It's not about whether it's fair or not. It's about whether or not it's what needs to happen for some reason. And trying to find that reason and be aware of it, which is very difficult when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah, especially when you don't see a change in sight. When you're literally in the thick of it and you don't see what's happening. It's very hard for humans, very hard for me to be in the thick of it and not know what the outcome is going to be.
That's right.
And to just trust.
Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't come until after you've passed through it, and you can look back and say, I see what I needed to know. Yeah. But in the middle of it, sometimes you're just holding on.
Yes.
You're just holding on until you get through.
Yes. And I've been there so many times, really, especially for me, surrounding my health and really life or death. Mm-hmm. And, when you hit that point where you're kind of faced, well, I could die today, not quite sure I'm going to make it today, that does really shift your reality. And you realize that once you feel like you've overcome something like that, where you can be in a space of complete surrender to the fact that you might die today, everything else seems like, okay, I think I can get through this because I literally faced my fear of death. And what's really worse than death for most people, I mean, there's certain people who embrace that.
Which you're doing right now, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're totally right that in the moment, it's very, very hard. Even for me, obviously, I'm human too, and it's very hard there are times where I talk about this information. I write it down. I have tons of material, and something may come along where right when I'm in it, and I'm like, oh shit. Like you just forget yourself for a second. But again, I think when you're on the spiritual path and you really commit to it, the time lapse that happens between you bringing yourself back to reality shortens, right? So again, it's in my belief that if you are completely enlightened and in connection with God's grace, you wouldn't need to be on earth school anymore. You would transcend, you'd go invisible, you'd die. So obviously we're all here still learning, right? But what can change is your perception of reality. What can change is the timeline with which you're moving. And I think what can change is the all-knowing is there within every one of us. Like every one of us, this is like called the Akashic Records, which is like the recording of all that is in your particular soul's history. And it's already within you, right? And some people, it's always funny, well, can you read my Akashic Records? I'm like, well, I'm not gonna tell you, you gotta do that yourself. I always think you gotta read your own Akashic Records. Be careful who you give your power to. But that being said, some people can relate deeper with the soul depending on the work that they've done. But yeah, so I forgot what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. Anyhow, you're the only one that can do the work, right? And you got to really you got to be willing to, I know what I was saying about the timelines shifting. The record of all that is already within you. And obviously many of us are seekers and searchers, but I've come to realize that, yes, it's nice to seek and search, but I'm more focused now on the letting go and the delayering. It's the upside down. It's like, wait a minute. It's nothing outside of me that's going to fix me. It's me that's going to fix me. Yes, there are things outside of me that bring me inspiration. I don't want to say that a profound book or an individual, but I really realize now that if you just let go, that the right things come to you in the right time without any effort. Not saying that you're not going to get something from going out to a lecture or having communication or reading a book, but if you just pull back and stop overdoing and doing and seeking and doing and doing and doing, the right person is going to show up for you, synchronistic events will happen, the right book will fall into your lap, the right conversation will happen, whether it's at the grocery store or wherever, that you kind of realize that you are creating your reality and it is coming to you if you're just willing to stop trying to control it so much and kind of just ease into it. That's one thing that I really learned, and that was so profound for me. When I have these really profound thoughts, to me they seem extraordinarily profound, but when it comes out of my mouth, I think, this is so simple, but I didn't quite get it before, but this is blowing my mind right now, that we make life so much harder than it actually has to be. When that really hit me, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm running myself in circles trying to figure everything out faster and quicker, and who can I get to, and who can help me, and who can enlighten me, and when I really realized, whoa, I just gotta, yes, I need to learn and give effort and take care of myself, but the more I just sit back and be aware of everything and keep myself centered, things come.
They do.
They do come.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
good for me to like remember because I'm definitely an overthinker. So I'm like, oh, what's the next thing like I have to do to like get more in line, and like actually like caught myself because I was like watching like this will like cleanse your chakras like video, like okay, just 10 minutes and you're gonna do it, and I was like, all right, and I was like, wait.
Is there something wrong with that statement? I think there's like, 10 minutes and 10 minutes and I'll fix you, I'll clear your chakras out.
Yeah,
Guys, we
like,
gotta be
and you're
careful
done.
with the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
I think that the spiritual teachers really need to check themselves. And I think I told you this to you, Kathy, last time we talked, but I'm really trying to, I love spirituality because it's getting you in touch with your spirit, and I love doing this work, but there's no spiritual teacher that's going to come along and just automatically cure you with a wand of the sage stick and a chakra clearing. Let's ground the spirituality, which, listen, I was in that upper realm of, woo, I loved it there. That's my home. But I had to come back to earth, and when I came back to earth, I realized, let's get real here. Let's take the spirituality and ground it and get real, get authentic. You got to do the work. God bless you. You got to do the work. Nothing is fixing you in 10 minutes. No, that's scary, you know? Actually, that reminds me of an ad that I saw on Facebook where it was bought from the Daily Om, which is apparently a media source for, I would assume, pretty good spiritual information. I've seen a couple of articles on it. And I took a picture of something. Let me see if I can find it quick. Just the other day. Which could be like way back because I take too many photographs. All right, I'm not going to go any further back. Let me just see if I can pay more attention, or I'll tell you basically what it said. So it was a woman. Here it is. It says Daily Om. It was a sponsored ad. And it's a woman, and it says, make yourself a money magnet. And I was like, wow. From the Daily Om, make yourself a money magnet?
Kind of a departure from the usual.
And that's where I think people need to be a little more discerning. Make yourself a money magnet under the Daily Om. Is that what we're trying to do? Right? No offense, Daily Om, but I mean,
Right.
Come on. You know, so you have to be cautious with the spiritual world because people can get very sucked into the light of it and then get lost with people who aren't fully in their authenticity.
Correct.
And it's about the money magnet.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You talked about this before, but I've struggled too with in my journey in looking for sometimes outside of myself rather than inside of myself for tools. And like you said, that's not always bad.
Right.
There are things out there, various different things that can assist us to go within and to go deeper and to grow. But you come across different teachers and sources, resources, and some of them promote maybe the more materialistic thing, like how to be, have more wealth in your life or security. And then there are some teachers who say, yes, their content of what they're saying is very, it resonates in terms of it being really helpful, but then they're like, and this course costs $500. Mm-hmm. And I understand, you need to be paid for what you do. If that is your livelihood, I'm not knocking it, like you said, like Wayne Dyer asking a certain fee for his presentations and whatnot. But there is this inconsistency that I've encountered where it like throws me off. Yeah. It's like, okay, we're seeking this inner health and becoming authentic and ascending, and now we're switching gears here, like, but I need the money first before we do this. Yeah. And I'm like, I get it, but at the same time, I'm a little confused.
I think that we should expand upon that just briefly because we talked about it a little bit earlier, but there was this moment in time about a year to two ago, no, longer than a year, a couple years, where all of a sudden there are more light workers, more yoga teachers, more spiritual facilitators becoming online here. And there was all of a sudden this rise of like, well, we deserve to be compensated for what we're doing. And many light workers in the community are severely underpaid and struggling to be able to do this. And I felt like I was partially in that category where I was really trying to devote myself to a spiritual process and help other people with that. And I was also struggling with my worth and my identity as so far as finances in this community. And so I saw this kind of turn into, well, no, we absolutely deserve to get paid in this, and this is our livelihood, and that is true. We do live in the 3D world. So I'm kind of on the fence with this stuff too, where I feel like as a light worker, you do have to ground, and paying your bills is part of being here on Earth and being of service. But again, for me, I do struggle with that still as well, where I think to myself, well, I need to charge this, and then I end up changing my charge or giving a lot of stuff for free or having it be donation. Because I think in the greater aspect, the greater picture for me personally is, and I can't remember if we just talked about this or not, where when I feel like I have to put a price to an event, there is an energetic exchange that I think is fair and should happen, but also at the same respect, it helps me feel more secure financially. If I say, well, this is this cost, and then it can become a little bit more about the cost and what I'm getting as so far as maybe just the material. Mm-hmm. And I feel a sense of security when I feel like, oh, all right, 15 people are coming to this workshop and this is what I'm going to get paid, right? But again, it shifts the energy a little bit when you do that. It does for me. So I kind of have to continuously sit back and say to myself, all right, do I have a lot financially? No. But every single month, I pay my bills. I get by. I'm happy. Like, what is it within me that feels like I need more security? What am I not getting that I feel like I need more finances? What is it that I really want? Okay, so something for me personally is I really wanted to start to travel more because I haven't had that opportunity because I was struggling for a lot of my years with illness. So I'd really like to travel more. So I thought to myself, well, do I need more money? Do I need to charge more because I'm not feeling fulfilled with some extracurricular activities in my life? Like, again, processing deeper. Why do I need to charge this much? What is it? What am I really getting? Because I am able to, it is coming in the respect that I am able to take care of myself. I don't have thousands of dollars in the bank, and I don't have, beautiful, luxurious things all over, but I have a nice apartment. I have a gorgeous studio. I'm clothed and I'm taken care of. I'm much more lucky than a lot of other people on this world. So what is it? What really is it with security and money? What am I looking to get to? Mm-hmm. Because we all know that the more money, I always say more money, more problems. And it's true. A level of certain like if you're not eating, we talked about this, I think, with the movie Happiness, that if you're not eating, if you make under a certain amount of income, your livelihood is threatened, your survival is threatened, yes, that creates a predicament where you need to focus on eating.
Right.
It's a survival thing. But once you're surviving, how much more do you need? What are you doing? You need that beautiful car? Do you need that sports car? Do you need that house, houses, boats? Like, what do you need? And some people need that to maybe feel comfortable or important, and nothing against luxury, right? I mean, I've had this conversation with, I think, Beth, where I experienced a point in my life where I was thrown into more luxury for a job than I was expecting, and I felt guilty at first. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa, this is this room is so beautiful and this food is so amazing, and it felt dirty to me for a second. And then I had to sit back and again check myself, like, what is it within me that feels like I don't deserve something nice, because this was kind of gifted to me.
Yeah.
Right? So again, just that always going deeper. But, finances is always, for a lot of people, especially in this industry, where they get a little bit caught. And, I've learned that there's nothing wrong with money. I've had to learn that.
Right.
Do people, have this appropriateness that's not balanced with their, power around money? Sure, of course. But also, why do you need a constant need to have more and get more and have nicer things? What are you not being fulfilled with now? Because I can relate, too, to the other guy in the YouTube video where he said, I just asked for my flight to be covered, my room to be covered, maybe a nice meal, and if anyone gives a donation. That actually resonates with me more than saying, I'll have 50 grand to come out to this. Mm-hmm. But then again, there's something still within me that feels like I would like a little more to be able to enjoy myself a little more. But that just needs to be processed, because at the end of the day, I'm super grateful and super happy and have never been as fulfilled in my whole life. Mm-hmm. So is that part of the program too? Of like needing to feel like you got to go away on a vacation or you need to whatever? Yes, exploring the world is beautiful. But I'm definitely in that realm of thinking where you want to create a life that you don't need a vacation from, as people say. And I don't feel ever in this work, I got to really get away. My students are really making me great. Like, I never feel that. I am so fulfilled and so energized with the work that I do in the world. And if people would actually feel that way in their job, the world would be a different place. And again, the majority of clients that I see who are unhappy in their line of work has nothing to do with the work for the most part. It has to do with the people they're with. I see this all the time. Or again, that inappropriation of power, the boss is a jerk or whatever. Like, it's the dynamic. It's not always the job. Very often I hear people say, I love my work, but it's just the boss or this one worker. Mm-hmm. Okay, what are you supposed to learn there? Yeah. What are you doing there? And then can you shift potentially or change your mindset around it? So as to accelerate spiritual choices of each individual on earth without violating their free will. Mm-hmm. So that's really good.
Yes.
I'm going to read it again. Some of this stuff that I have written here, I think we might need to process for a second. So the Matrix is the system used by foreign forces operating on this planet so as to accelerate spiritual choices of each individual on Earth without violating their free will. That's a whole other topic we could really get into, and I love to talk about it, is the concept of free will. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think? Do you think we have ultimate free will? I mean, obviously it's multidimensional, but what's your opinion on free will? Like choice, like you make, like, do you believe you're just destined and you're not running the show? Do you believe you do? You are running the show?
Like I said before, I don't think anything happens to us here without our permission. So I think it's our free will to have chosen this life and the experiences we will go through. Now, that being said, we chose those experiences. So I think those experiences are going to happen to us. How they happen, how fast they happen, I think we have that free will to operate within that. But whatever the purpose of those experiences is for our growth or for others, will be accomplished somehow through the experiences that we have.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to really think like very nihilistically, where I was like, nope, there's nothing, you live your life, you have complete freedom, and there's no purpose to anything, you just do it, and then you die, and then you're gone. And yeah, I really was for a while. It's actually very interesting because I was very nihilistic for like a really long time, and then I really started, like, it almost was just this complete flip. I got like really spiritual really quickly, and it just...
What did it?
I think when my dad got sick.
When was that?
In July.
So the flip is pretty recent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's very much like now it's kind of like exploring that spirituality and like kind of figuring out like not where it lies, but sort of like what it is, kind of, you know? So when now I really have this like, I think that there is possibly like this innate purpose that's like that every person has like this purpose that they can fulfill, or they don't have to. It's like you have the choice on whether or not you're going to work towards fulfilling that purpose, or even figuring out what that is and allowing that to happen, or you can choose to not. You can choose to live nihilistically and just be like, meh, I don't care, that's not a thing, and like ignore it. And that's where like I think our free will comes into play. You have all the freedom in the world to not care about any of that and just live your life and whatever, or you can decide like, no, like I really want to try to discover that.
What's your opinion, Beth?
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. Like I think that each of us have a mission that we can or cannot complete in this lifetime. But yeah, I definitely think we have free will to make the daily decisions that we do. And then I guess with like reincarnation, I guess then we have the opportunity again, like, oh, now do you want to do the mission? So.
Yeah, that's exactly how I see it. I see, and that really, to expand upon that, is when I really started to completely lose my fear of death, was when I really fully realized that it's all ongoing. Again, really taking that eagle-eye perspective and just recognizing that we have such this limited perception of reality in this 3D world. Like we can only really see like the holograph, like we can only really see that. We don't really see beyond. But it's just, like if you just didn't have any conceptualization around death, because death can be there's this very scary perception for a lot of people around the ideology of death. But if you didn't know death existed, and you really understood that you are infinite, you live forever. It's just like, say for instance, death was just you getting sick, but you didn't die. But it really was that you died, right? But just if you think of it like you were sick as your death, and then you just started from where you left off, or you had another lifetime to help your soul grow. So my opinion, from where I'm at, from my perception, is that we're all going to fulfill the mission to recognize that we're infinite beings. But it's just a matter of, again, your free will, what you chose to in this incarnation. You know, the free will will determine the timelines and how quickly you're accelerating or not. And then again, you get sick, you keep going. And you get sick, you keep going. And that's my idea of like reincarnation, right? And then I do believe that I do believe in an end point. I don't know that everybody believes this, but I do kind of believe that you do have an established set of lifetimes, and then I do believe that there is an ultimate transcendence into whatever you want to call it, you know. But I also believe very much in the idea of the new earth and achieving heaven on earth now. I think that's definitely available for us. The whole energetic shift, the whole event that people have been talking about, where the planetary vibration is moving up, and that we have the choice to accelerate ourselves in the fashion where we can raise our vibration high enough where the consciousness can become more clear, where we can transcend the blockages and the fears and really pull heaven down to earth, and to really live in a state of, I don't want to say perfection, but in a state where your life is not chaos anymore, where you're really understanding the concept behind the human experience.
Where we can see the code of the program and we can write it.
Exactly.
Nobody's writing it for us.
Right, exactly.
We're creating our reality completely as we want to.
Right.
And like spiritual masters like Jesus and Buddha, I think they attained that
They sure did.
awareness of being able to be a fully aware spiritual being in a physical body.
That's right. The ultimate empath, the ultimate person to walk the earth, to encompass other people's energies through their own awareness. That's all that is, right? And the thing is, people there are people like that on Earth. It's the thing, we kind of think back into the great spiritual masters, but they've always existed in every realm, and in every timeline, in every generation, and they're here now. It's just that it's, again, the perception around it is very, very muddied.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so many spiritual traditions, so many different cultures. A huge theme that runs through it all is the discussion around fear and why we should not be afraid. I mean, how many times and how many places in the Bible do you hear, Jesus say, "Do not be afraid"? And even the term fear was misunderstood in the Old Testament.
Right.
Fear wasn't about cowering in like what we think of as fear before God. Fear meant right relationship. Fear God meaning be in good relationship with Source, right? So the whole idea of being afraid of death, I mean, I think one of the things Jesus was saying about not being afraid of that, death is just another level of transcendence or transformation. It's just another process. It is not like obliteration or the end of everything.
Right. And I've experienced that myself in the last couple of years, where I literally died and was reborn over and over and over and over again in a rapid, short period of time. But it felt very much like a physical death.
Yes.
It was that drastic. And people have that, I think, at times when there's something cataclysmic that happens or some major trauma where it transforms you. That's what death is. Death is a transformation.
Yes.
That's all it is. It's a transformation of energy from one form to another. That's all death really is. And I've experienced that heaven on earth death with this spiritual awakening, i.e. means of a dark night of the soul and beyond, where literally I've woken up and I've said, I've died again and I'm reborn. And again, that relates to me to what I was taught through the Bible of being born again. So when I had this spiritual experience that came through me in appropriate time, I didn't seek it outside of me, then I knew I was really reborn. When it was my time and it really came through me, not when I was looking to be reborn. Can you make me reborn, please? No, it was when I was fully ready and I had those experiences. Oh, now I know what the Bible means. Now I know what they're saying because I'm ready and I actually am available to hold the space for the feeling and the material, and now I'm reborn. And then when you're reborn, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I made it through that experience. That was so crazy. Oh my, I'll never ever again be able to handle anything like that. Please don't ever let that happen. And then 2 days later, I'm back here again. Like, oh my God. So for me in my journey, it's been extremely accelerated and amplified. But now I'm used to it. Now I'm like, all right, this is my new norm right now for some reason because I've chosen this and I'm learning a lot and I'm meant to be facilitating. So I got to just figure out how to navigate dying and being reborn and dying and being reborn and dying and being reborn and just trust it and surrender it and just release the fear because you're just transforming. Like every time you're just transforming. And that's exactly how I see physical death is, yes, there's a process, but the physical body, right? But it's just a transformation of form in your energy. It's just, you're still here. I firmly believe that there are souls all around us. We just can't see them. They're invisible. They're just there. That's invisible. And that's why people can very much pick up on other people's energies at times, or they know they're there, because they are there. But when you yourself are blocked energetically from believing that they're actually there based off your own limitations or fears about having a dead person right next to you, but you can't see their flesh and their meat suit. Because I know people who will say, do you feel your person around you? Or do you, and a lot of people will say, nope, I never have. I don't. And there's a disbelief. And my mom's like that a lot. I'll ask it, have you seen your mom? Or no, she doesn't come around. And it's just kind of like she already has that programmed in her mind that it might not ever happen. So, but not everybody, I believe, is really meant to have communication with the afterlife, but some people do. But it is in my belief that it is just a transformation of energy, and they can very much be right around us at times if we so choose, maybe not all the time.
Right.
You know, because I do believe that there's missions and things happening on the other side as well. You know, so.
So you don't think the soul necessarily goes back into another like meat suit, whether animal, plant, person, like as soon as they die?
I think it depends on, as soon as they die,
Right,
or
right.
they immediately,
Right.
Well, the soul is the soul. So the soul is infinite. The body, I believe, can change. And I sure do believe that you can incarnate into another being. I mean, I've met people and I've seen, you know, scenarios where there was clearly somebody's soul that incarnated into another person's body. You know, you see this a lot where, you know, there was a young child or children who claim that they know exactly their past lives and where they were and who they were and what color their skin was, and they know everything. And I absolutely believe that. I do believe, too, that souls can stick around if there's some sort of mission, or there's, you know, you often hear of sometimes souls getting stuck between the current world and the next world. And again, for me, like hearing that now even sounds different for me than it did previous, because we can have that same sensation on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So you're stuck between two realities. You're stuck between how you were, or how, you know, your current life, and then where you're going. You can get in that stuckness. So, and then for me, like there have been times, seriously, and I'm like 100% dead serious, that really blew my mind more than once, handful of times, where I clearly did not know if I was alive or dead. Clearly. I was like, am I alive or am I dead? Because now, like, it's all running together, and I know I see I have a physical body, and I interact with other people, and I know they have physical bodies, but it was like everything just merged together. And I really, in that moment, was like, I don't know if I'm alive or dead. I don't know if I'm on heaven or on earth. I mean, I felt amazing. You know, it didn't feel scary or anything like that, but I literally was like, what if we're all dead now, and it's that we're trying to become alive? You know, like I really was like, whoa, this is really like mind-bending and crazy. But there were a couple of times where it all merged together. And what I do know is that there was no fear, and that I felt joyous, and it was really beautiful, and I loved what I was doing. But when I started to think, I really was like, I couldn't differentiate between one or the other. And it was really freaky for me when I thought about it. The feeling was completely organic and natural. But again, when the mental faculty came in, I was like, where am I? What's happening? Then I freaked out for a second.
Yeah.
Right? And that's usually how it is. Like a lot of us will have feelings, and depending on the feeling, if it's not a normal feeling, you start to think about it, and then the monkey mind comes, and then you freak yourself out about anything. Finances, your job, like
Yep.
anything. You know?
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about that?
I like that normal feeling. Like-
What's feeling that?
No, I like the concept of like, what is a normal feeling? Like, I think,
A familiar feeling, maybe?
yeah, like familiar to you, but then I also think that there's like this concept of like, when you go through a certain situation, that you should have like a normal to the masses feeling.
Yeah.
So when you don't
That's
have
the
that,
Matrix, right?
yeah, when you don't have that, it's kind of like
You're different.
you feel amazing about it, but then like you said, like that monkey mind comes in and you're just like, wait, what if I'm not, maybe this isn't right, maybe I'm not processing this properly, like because no one else seems to be like this, or
And that's, I think, the key with really going on this journey and having a spiritual awakening, is to be comfortable with not being familiar, and to be comfortable with not fitting in with the masses. Because again, I doubt, you know, and I had doubted as I was really on this journey. Like, okay, now I have no friends because I pretty much eliminated all of my friends. But then every now and then I'm like, does nobody like me? Like you kind of get pulled back in a little bit, right? Or whatever it may be, where again people are saying you're crazy, you're thinking, you know, whatever, and then again you go back into the program for a second and you're like, well, maybe I should just put on, you know, TV and eat pizza and call my friend and we'll have, like, you kind of like almost want to go back there for some sort of like comfort or familiarity kind of thing. So really to be on this journey does require the ultimate faith in the unknown, and that is very scary for people who aren't familiar with these kind of feelings. And again, you can really only process so much at one time, or it is just, and there are people who have processed a lot. These incredible alchemists and people out there who work with this secret hidden knowledge and this information, and a lot of them were very isolated and considered odd or like occultists or different, but also a level of genius that's like hard to comprehend. Like I'm really fascinated with Nikola Tesla, who did all the free energy. I mean, these people were different. These people led different lives. Einstein, I mean, all these amazing people, but they were totally plugged in and tuned in to the level of being an outcast, so to speak, you know? And they could, you know, they could function in reality, but again, do you want to live that way? Because it feels so foreign and so scary at times and so unfamiliar that so many people are just, even to have a small spiritual awakening or have moments can be very scary for some people because, again, we're so conditioned to do what the masses tell us to do. But when you settle into that place of trust and surrender over and over again, and it doesn't just happen once. This was one thing that I learned. It was like, well, I had to learn through my sickness that I had to really surrender. And if I can give you a piece of advice, surrender to the experience. Yeah, that doesn't stop. Like you have to like surrender again and then surrender again. And that's what we talked about with like your Akashic records, like the information of all that is, your cellular memory of all that is it's already in you. How do you work towards enlightenment? How do you refine yourself? How do you educate, elevate your consciousness? It's you take what you know now, no matter what that level of knowledge is, and you just constantly refine it, peel away the layers. You're gaining things that seem like new knowledge, but they're not. It's helping you to refine what you already know. So even if your seed is small, and your knowledge right now, you may think that you've got a long way to go. That seed is still gonna blossom into the oak tree, right? So like it's all within your DNA is all that information already. So all you gotta do on your awakening is, first of all, trust that you're at the right place at the right time. That's really hard to do. And then just to realize, wait, I already am an enlightened being. Like you have to remember that. You have to remember that. It's not coming outside of you. You have to remember, I've done this before. This is a remembrance, and I just have to keep deconditioning and refining what I already know through whatever means and self-study I need to do. That's what the greatest knowledge that has come to me over the last couple of years has been that just complete recognition of, I just keep delayering. I just keep refining the same stuff, just refining it. It's not like anything outside of myself is refining what I already know. It's helping me, but like there's no knowledge outside of myself that's fixing me. All that knowledge is doing is helping me to refine what I already know to be true. Does that make sense? Go ahead. Kathleen.
Yes, some of the most powerful moments that I've had, when I've read something or been exposed to something, and it resonated so deeply, was that it connected to my truth, what I already know. Yes, that's right. I remember now.
I remember. That's the thing too. For the longest time, you guys all know that I struggle terribly with labeling myself, and I still don't know who I am, but through that process of this major awakening that I had, I was like, again, one of those profound moments that wasn't that profound, just quite simple, was that, oh my gosh, I'm just remembering all that's to be true within me. I'm not gaining. I'm gaining, but it's through the remembering. It's just, I'm just waking up to what I already knew. people, it's hard to conceptualize a little bit because it's so much of a seeking externally, you know, but you're literally just waking up to what's already, you already did this. You're already in an infinite enlightened being. You just, again, we're in the under the veil of illusion, which is now thinning like crazy, and everybody is starting to wake up. If you guys want to read over this, it's a lot of what we already said. I think it's important to go on to this topic because we're around it right now. Okay. Do you know how many of these like tablets I you come to my apartment, it's just like rolled up information. All right, so I want to talk about the concept of truth versus perception. And I think we kind of touched on this maybe, well, probably at some point. Wait, we've all been here before. We remember this, right? Okay, so there were a couple of things that I came across that I thought were really, really interesting. So, truth is objective, meaning that it is not based on the perception of human beings, which is capable of wavering. Truth is simply that which is. Everyone may think their perception is truth, but it requires one who has transcended the ego, behavior, and their own patterns to discern perception versus truth. So truth is really unwavering, and people's perceptions are very wavering, but yet people want to be valued and to be seen and heard. So a lot of times people will really want their perception to be absolute truth. Right?
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that? Anything?
Absolutely. Like I said, when I've had moments where something's resonated with me so deeply and it's the truth, it's has nothing to do with like you have there with ego. It's all about it is.
It's energetic. It's feeling.
It's not just thinking. What is. You know, it's just what is. It has nothing to do with right or wrong or what should be or shouldn't be. It just is.
Right. And that's the thing. That's why I wanted to talk about truth and perception, because that leads into resonance too, and really starting to shift out of not out completely of the scientific logical brain, because there's obviously that comes into play as well. But this idea of trusting energetic frequency, energetic resonance, and you can't see that. It's just a feeling. You can't think energetic resonance. You can just feel it. But do you trust your feeling? Is it familiar? Is it not? Do you trust that? Or then do you go into thought and then it muddies the whole experience that maybe was just meant to be not overthought and just felt an experience? Does that make sense? This quote I thought was really good by this guy named Travis Walton. I've come to realize that the biggest problem is that people's perceptions of reality are compulsively filtered through the screening mesh of what they want or don't want to be true. So it's like everything, as so far as their idea of perception of reality, goes through like almost like the matrix filter. And it's like, and now that a lot depends on how deeply entrenched you are in your own ego and how much of your own ego you've transcended to be into more of the heart space purity where it's not really about you. You know, because I know have been times in my experience where you would ask me, is your aim true? Are you pure in this intention? And I would absolutely, in absolute truth, say, yes, I'm totally pure in this. I really want this for you. But somewhere down the line, if I process, there's something about me in there, right?
Yeah.
So again, that's something to consider as well, as, you know, that idea of transcending the ego when it comes to truth. Truth is something that, truth is absolute, right? But again, how often can people really speak their truth without a level of their own personal story or perception behind it? Even if you absolutely think that your intention is pure and true, if you sit and you really do the work and you process back and back and back and back and back, I mean, there have been times where this has happened to me with a particular partner, where I'm thinking so surely and accurately that this has everything to do with them. But down the line, there's still something that I want out of it. Even though it might not be at the forefront. And obviously, we know when people are being manipulative or not having like their ego more at the top of the scale of the perspective than way down. But still, if way down the line there's something that you're expecting out of it, it's still a little bit ego.
Yeah.
You know? So I like that quote. And then it says perception to perceive through a lens of, that's what that means, perception, to perceive through a lens based on one's own personal circumstances and reality. That's the thing. Even as adults, we're still processing relationships and everything that we do typically through our past experience. And our past experience doesn't have to be just this incarnation. That's where it gets muddied and complex and layered and confusing, is that you have lived lives before. So there are emotions that sometimes arise that we're not recognizing, aren't even maybe from this particular incarnation. Or maybe they're from, we talked about like mother and grandmother's DNA. I think we talked about this a little bit. So you could be carrying things from your mother's perception and your grandmother's perception. So like, it is hard when you start to do the work really deeply on yourself and things start to arise. It's the willingness to be aware of your feelings at every moment and to try to take a second to process and say, where is this coming from? It was the greatest source of freedom for me as somebody who is very highly sensitive and empathic to realize that everything that I feel isn't all mine. I have that ability to literally pull in somebody's energy and actually to the point of it manifesting through me physically.
Yep.
That means you got a headache? Oh, give it to me. I'll take care of it. And then literally, I have a headache. So literally things can transmute through me and represent as a physical condition. So again, if you work in this field of energy work, light workers, whatever it may be, there can be a lot of messiness and muddiness involved here if you're not very, very clear. I mean, I did that for the longest when I worked as a massage therapist years ago, was I wanted to heal everybody, right? It's a big job, and it's not my job. But God was like, okay, you want to? Because it's probably not going to be real healthy for you, right? And I learned my lesson, right? I got very, very sick, needed a kidney transplant. And I learned, for me, with the correlation of medicine in this emotional, spiritual stuff, is what is the kidney? Very basically and simply, it's a filter. The kidney filters your blood. Filters your life force, your little blood in your body. And I was realizing I don't know how to filter people's spiritual emotions. I don't know. It's coming in me, and I'm just taking it on, and my literal organs are manifesting and saying, I can't filter all this energy, it's not all mine, right? So again, you go and you say that to a Western doctor, they might be like, well, it's just, the book doesn't tell me that, I don't know, I don't understand what you're saying. But I think we're finally getting to the point where we're recognizing that the soul has a very big element and component to play in the role of healing. I know when I was at my sickest moments, I could not just rely on Western medicine. Now, if that is some people's soul journey to have an illness and recover solely through Western medicine, that's part of their own specific journey. I think we can all attest that there are millions of people dying under just the care of Western medicine alone. I do not believe that that's the sole way to care for a soul in reality. I think that you must address the physical, of course. You must address the spirit and the emotions, and you must address the soul. And nobody does that. Maybe they'll send you to a psychologist, but very often a psychologist is not really skilled and privied in the language of the soul, right? So I'm just hoping that this still continues to somehow integrate, and that we can find people who are open to doing this, because that was the only reason I know that I'm still here today, is by me being in the hospital beds with the Western medicine, taking the medication that I was a little resistant to take, but I had to learn that I needed to be open to it. For me, that was my process of being more open with Western medicine, period. Because in the beginning, I refused medication because I thought, I can heal myself. And I had been in school to be a naturopath for probably 4 years prior to that, doing an online program. and also had gone to school for nursing and gone to school for yoga and massage. And I thought, if anyone should be able to take care of this, it should be me. I've got a good level of knowledge here where I should be able to take care of myself and heal myself. And when the illness came, and I was not having the means through my education to heal my body, I had to surrender to Western medicine. And that was very frustrating for me because I literally looked up to God and I was like, this isn't what I'm supposed to do. Like, I thought I had all this knowledge around healing the body and healing the physical self through these natural means, and you're not letting me do this. Now I feel like, who am I, right? But in those moments, taking that medicine, those high doses of steroids for the first time, which created all sorts of bad symptoms, helped me to surrender to the fact that there's a very real component to the science of healing the physical body, but a component, one of several that needs to be actually addressed, right? But again, you're dealing with a lot of egos, right? So we all know, there are many wonderful doctors out there, and there are many doctors who are very stuck in the old template and program, and I've had it out myself personally with several doctors because, number one, I don't blindly follow information. I have a lot of questions, and sometimes people of that status or caliber don't like to be pressed with a million of questions that they don't know and they don't have the time. And I've really challenged a lot of people in the field of Western medicine because I know there's more to it. And at the end of the day, when I was at my illest, sounds like a Beastie Boys, illest, I knew that the Western medicine was not saving me, and all the doctors that were coming in, they did not know what to do with me. I had no choice but to surrender to my physical body dying, or to remember again where I came from. Okay, wait, I do remember before this, and I just completely gave myself over to Western medicine, completely, that I had this other aspect of me, where I really believed in alternative medicine and healing the spirit. And what I did was, I had to go backwards and go back to that. And then I had that aha moment, and the light bulb went off, and I was like, I can do both. And it's okay to do both. I don't have to pick sides, right? And that's what I did. So I sat there with books of, Caroline Myss, Your Biography Becomes Your Biology, and Louise Hay, and all sorts of profound energy work. And I was like, all right, if I'm gonna live, I gotta do it all. I gotta take my medicine, I gotta watch my diet, I gotta drink clean water, I gotta dress my wounds and my spirit and my emotions. I gotta do it all. And if I wouldn't have done that, I don't think I would be here, right? But again, are people told this? Are they taught this? Do they have that? It took a lot for me, physically and emotionally, to do all that when you're on death's door. Yeah. When you're on death's door to say, well, now I'm gonna do even more work. Because usually when you're that sick, you just don't have the energy, right? You just don't. So yes, there were days where I couldn't do that kind of work. But whenever I had a spark or an ounce of energy, I went in and I healed my soul. And it's a lot. But nobody tells people to do this. I mean, we're still in the dark ages where people are being fed crap food in hospitals, and nutrition isn't even really being fully recognized in the system of medicine, which is that's archaic, right? But all right, so truth, perception, resonance. Yeah, so resonance, I believe, is energy, and it's an absolute truth to you. You don't need anybody's approval. Right. That's the nice thing. But then when you start to look for somebody's approval of something that resonates with you, again, you go into the mind and it can get pretty muddied. Right? So for me, as so far as resonance, again, I don't care how crazy it is, whether it be a person or a thought or a visualization that's going to help me. If it works for me and it feels good, I do it. I don't need anybody's approval, And I know for a while I went into this kind of rebellious stage with humans. I kind of went into this place where I was like, everybody's asleep and you just leave me alone and I'll just isolate myself, right? It's not really helping the world and the mission. So I had to kind of recognize, get out of my own ego and just say, all right, everybody here is somehow a reflection of fragments of myself. And I have to love them anyway. even though I may judge them and feel, say they're asleep, but guess what? I was once asleep. And I have to try to really find compassion for them and just not let it continually rip me out of my vibration, which is really hard to do. Especially, and again, I've found out that the more you delayer, the less often that shows up in your reality because you're learning. So I don't get that many major triggers and major, like people that come in that with those really low density emotions or feelings that trigger that in me because I'm not resonating with that frequency really anymore. Mm-hmm. Does it happen every now and then if something does need to be addressed? Sure, of course, I'm human. But not like it was before. There are some people who are in that mindset of the world is out to get me. I knew one of my ex-partner's wives, my ex-partner's mothers were like that. And it was, the world is out to get me. I hate the world, everybody's evil, and I gotta just defend myself. It was like this, like, I'm the only one looking out for me. Everybody else is, hurting me, out to get me. So, and that's not a good place to be in either, even though sometimes it can really feel like that, Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
I'm in a very similar situation right now. Because I was actually just telling Beth about this, because we were talking about, the different perceptions of certain instances. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to kind of, now that my dad has passed and I can kind of get back to my new normal life or whatever, I'm starting to go and be with friends again. Mm-hmm. And I was just with one of my friends, and it was a lot of that very heavy for hours, just a lot of negativity, a lot of that everyone is out to get me and I have to defend myself and I'm the only one that has my best interest at heart, and no ability to allow herself to just be vulnerable in a moment and be oh, I do need help with this or anything like that. And I was trying really, really hard to just listen to her and not be well, you should do this. Just listen and be there for her. The whole rest of the week I was super anxious. I started thinking about things and projecting her feelings on aspects of my life that I felt completely comfortable with. And I was oh my, and I really was trying to work through all this anxiety and okay, I'd work through it and then something else would happen that I would start to feel just oddly anxious about. Even though I felt very comfortable in that moment, I would just all of a sudden be very, very anxious about it. Especially a lot of what she was telling me was about her relationship with her boyfriend. So a lot of things started coming up with me and my boyfriend, and it was and I was what? I literally don't care about this. Why am I doing this? And then I think it was yesterday I just realized oh my gosh, for 2 hours I spoke with her about all these dilemmas that she's having, all this anxiety that she's having about her relationship. It's coming out now. I absorbed all of that and now it's coming out in me, and I have to figure out that's not actually how I feel. This is just me absorbing that energy.
That has happened to me many times with people, where somehow you get caught in a conversation, and again, is it a conversation that's meant to come through because there is some sort of processing that needs to be done there? But yeah, it's very easy to take the energy and then project it, even though you did not feel that way. But if you're around that, to then have it come through you and project and create problems where there's really no problems, I think that helps to teach discernment. And really it helps to teach, wait, that's not me.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got out of it. Was oh, because I feel this way a lot of times when I'm around certain negative energy. I absorb that, and now I feel negative about things. But it's very hard to discern between what I'm feeling and what someone else is feeling. And I dealt with a lot of that while my dad was very sick, of me absorbing all of what he was feeling and really feeling that. So now it's sort of oh yeah, you have to kind of learn if you're going to be able to help people with these problems that they have, you're gonna have to learn that these
Yeah.
aren't your problems to feel. They're your problems to help them heal. So
Or you will not be a suitable
person to
helper
help them. Exactly.
because you won't be here.
And I could feel it, like, even as I was speaking to her, I could feel like I started to slowly feel like drained and frustrated and like
Yeah.
all these things. I could feel myself like almost just becoming like really in it and in her emotion, and it was just like, and I kept trying to say to myself like, this is not how you feel. It's okay to listen, but that don't take this, and I was like telling myself as she's talking, don't take this into your life. And then I ended up doing it
It's
anyway.
still, yeah, because that line gets so, you almost merge with the energy,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? And it's very, very hard. But I know I've been through that, thousands and thousands of times where
Yeah.
I know better, but it still comes in and comes through. But that is part of the process of awakening spiritually, is really knowing you and knowing who you are and being able to hold that space for someone else without it becoming you.
Yeah.
And that was a really hard one for me to learn. Took me like 40 years to get through that one.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I mean, I was able to like get through that and sort of like realize what it actually was, and I was able to not really act on it, which I was very proud of myself for doing, like not sitting there and saying, you know, to Eddie, like, Eddie, you have to do this, this, and this. Like, I stopped myself and was like, whoa, no, he doesn't. Like, you're coming from like up here and not from like something that's like truly
Yeah.
love towards him. So working through that was just like this, and then this kind of light went off, like, oh.
And to
That's
think
not-
about how many people are literally acting that way day in and day out without any recognition at all of the energy they're carrying and projecting. They have no idea who they are. It's just a mishmash of energies, right? I see that a lot I've seen this in the past with specific yoga teachers, where like if they're coming in or they're working for me or whatever, where I feel such a confusion of energy, where it's like there's so much effort being put in like different areas. I'm just looking for a clear read on somebody. Like I'm looking for a clear energy, and I can feel this element of, I'm like, whoa, like chaos. Like the energy is very chaotic, and I'm like, they don't know. They need to rein it in. Who are you? You know, who are you right now at least? You know, like who are you right now? What do you want to project? With so much of like influences, well, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this. And I'm like, how are you going to help somebody if you have no idea who you are? Like, you have to like rein in the energy a little bit. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of practice. But if you're going to be working with other people, I want to at least know that you have an idea of who you are and why you're here to teach for me. You know, like that's important. Like it's good to be interested in 100 different forms of yoga and alternative therapies, but who are you? Who are you here to help in the space? You know, and again, that may change, that may evolve, but like right now, like what's your mission right now? I don't need like who are you forever and beyond, and what is your main mission here on planet Earth? Just like right now, who do you want to help right now? And if you don't know, then you're going to get a bunch of confused people in your class. That's what you'll attract. You know what I mean? So you can tell when people have a little bit more clarity around who they are. And again, that's always being refined. But think about the masses of people out there energetically exchanging through other people's negativity and lack and emotions, and then it's all running through them, and then we're reacting. And I'm having a conversation with you, but I got Sally and Joe's and Fred's energy coming through onto you, and you've got all these other energies projecting onto me, and no wonder we have war and chaos, right? Because like nobody really knows themselves. It's very, very hard.
And that can like really, I don't know, at least for me, that can be I don't know, really bring you down, like thinking about like war and thinking about like, oh, there's like so many people suffering right now, and you can feel like really like trapped in like those emotions, and they can like super bring you down. But I just try to focus on, instead of trying to fix the world, like I just read this quote, this is not exactly word for word, but instead of trying to fix the world, focus on bringing out the light within yourself, because that's what the world needs the most.
Yes. That's huge. That's a huge, it's everybody's mission. And this is what we don't understand, is literally, it's the whole idea of as above, so below, as within, so without. The microcosm, macrocosm is like, we are all a projection within of what's happening around us. Everything that's happening around us, there is a literal war within most of us to awaken out of the matrix. Like there's things that we're perceiving that are literally a part of us as humans. So the only way, this is true, and there's so many quotes, you know, if you want to, first I wanted to heal the world and then I realized I had to heal myself. That's another very famous quote. So again, that is real. The only way I could sit here with you guys and we can exchange, or the only way that I can work with a client, is if I've done my work. So you guys do work, I do work, and then we're at this resonance exchange where we can share and help each other, right? So you can literally, that's with love. And this is something that's very real, is, you know, you see this a lot, you know, with particular, I'm thinking like mothers and people who give so much to their children, where they're just giving and giving and giving, to the point where, you know, when their child goes to college, they have no idea who they are, their physical health may be potentially a mess, they're psychologically lost, they don't know who they are anymore, their whole life has been spent and revolved around caring for others. And then they have to almost reframe their complete existence and some of them struggle deeply trying to figure out who they are. Maybe their marriage is shot because neither of them took time to nurture the marriage. But the issue is, with love, the truth and reality is, some people will say, oh, I love my kids more than anything, and that's very much true, but you can only love your children as much as you have experienced love for yourself. You cannot project something outside of you that you have not experienced. That's absolutely true. So if you have a great amount of love, or you have healed yourself a great amount, or if you have whatever, then you can do more profound work with somebody, okay? So no matter, and again, that can be very triggering. This like self-realization stuff can really piss a ton of people off because they just don't have that openness, readiness, that teachability, because they're very stuck on, no, this is all I know. So then that's the thing with working with people, and that's why I don't do a ton of advertising, which maybe is partially why I'm on this, like, you know, we talked about the abundance trajectory, but yeah, I have a business and I don't promote it, but the issue is because I want people to walk through the door with a good level of teachability. I don't want to just advertise to the world, come to my studio, it's the greatest, we are the most awesome studio in the world, and then guess what I get? A bunch of very confusing energy, and then I gotta change how I teach to make sure everybody's on the same length so we can try to rise together. Not saying that can't be done, it's done every day, right? But my mission is spiritual evolution and spiritual growth, and constantly working to refine. And you can't refine if you keep getting all sorts of confusing energy, and then you gotta go back to this, you gotta go back to that. So that's why I don't advertise. I'm just like honestly trusting and hoping that the right energy at the right time is gonna come through the door. And that's why I don't care if it's one person. I'm like, all right, this is more fulfilling for me than it is having a classroom of 50 or 75 people, showing that on Facebook. Look at how busy my studio is. I'm so awesome. That's all ego. What are you really saying? Are you attracting the masses? Sure, that's okay to attract the masses because we're all on this journey, right? But if you are projecting with any level of ego or whatever,
fear out of money or I gotta be the best, sure, you will be popular because the majority of the population is still in that program. But somebody's gotta hold the light. Somebody's gotta be in a state of no fear. So people have somewhere to go if they want to step up in their consciousness, right? That's why I think I'm here. And that's why I'm in full faith and trust that whatever happens, I will be taken care of. The right people will come along. This business will evolve how it's meant to evolve, whether it be here, whether it be online, whether it be whatever. As long as I stay on track and trust, I will be taken care of and I will be fulfilled, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So really staying true to who you are. But you gotta first know who you are. And if you learn from people who don't really know who they are, what are you really learning? You may be learning, but then that's where linear time comes into play, right? That's where the whole timeline things happen. And again, free will, right? You may be learning a lot, doing the same yoga class for 10 years. I did it. I was stuck in the yoga program for 18 years or longer. It helped me. But there came a time where I needed more and I kept doing yoga, and I realized when I went through this profound experience that, oh, I was like actually keeping myself trapped there. Because like love and light and yoga is gonna enlightening and yoga is gonna be your key. Yoga is one of a million keys. But I was only using the yoga key, and I needed more. I needed more than my yoga key. And I kept staying there, thinking that something was gonna shift for me with my yoga key. And is yoga, listen, yoga, great for your physical body. I love yoga, I practice yoga. But now I know that I needed to branch out beyond this because there's way more. Right? And yoga is a part of my program for myself, right? But so is meditation, so is diet, so is deep, introspective healing and mirror work and deep spiritual, authentic stuff. It's very difficult to get into that in an hour-long yoga class. Maybe you have a beautiful theme of gratitude. Yes, everybody needs to be reminded to be gracious. I do too, all the time. But again, you can only get so far when you're stretching and you've got one theme you may be focusing on. This kind of stuff requires more work, right? More availability to people who are really doing that work, you know? So again, not getting stuck on one part of the journey for a very, very long time because it's trendy, or it's popular, or there's people on Instagram and Facebook portraying how happy they are on the beach in their bikini and a handstand. You know what I mean? Is that real? Or is it that 10 minutes, I'm gonna clean up your chakras? Come on, right? Like, I think that the community needs to get real.
That's so much
right?
pressure to like sit there and say like in 10 minutes, your chakras are gonna be cleaned out. Well, what if they're not? Did I not do it right? Like, is that not, like, then you
Well,
start
think
to like,
of how
push it,
dysfunctional
like,
and distorted that is on both sides.
Yeah, right.
One that a person could actually take into their own hands, that they're going to heal your chakras in 10 minutes. And then the other person too, how distorted is that for them to either believe that that person had the power to do it, or number two, if they weren't feeling any better, to think that they then did something wrong. That's why that creates a whole nother serious debacle in the spiritual community. Do you know what I mean? I don't even like to portray myself. I'm very cautious with words because, again, perception and words. People have so much perception around a word. I don't call myself a psychic intuitive soul reader or like I'm going to heal you. The healing isn't coming through me. I can hold a space and hold a mirror from what I've been through. But the healing only ever occurs through you and the God of your own understanding, you and your infinite being and your own soul. So I'm very, calling yourself a healer, this and that. Whoa, be prepared because, God literally, or Jesus literally got staked to the cross. So like, you better be prepared to be persecuted if you're going to start calling yourself that you're doing the healing. You're doing nothing but being you and your authentic self, and holding the humbleness to say, hey, look, I've been through this, and I can show you how I've been through this. And if that inspires you to shift yourself, awesome. If something that you say inspires me to shift myself, but this interaction is divine, and it's divinely orchestrated, and has nothing to do with me healing your chakras in 10 minutes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Inappropriation of power and finances, that's not going to elevate the consciousness. That's where spirituality can become very dangerous.
Right. And defining what transcendence is supposed to look or feel like. I think it's
Right.
very unique for every
It is
person.
so
And
unique.
so we can't compare ourselves to someone else's experience and saying, well, if I don't feel this way or this didn't happen for me, then I didn't ascend, or I didn't do this practice right, and that I'm not okay. Yeah, so we have to be really careful not to take on someone else's definition of what our journey is supposed to look
Absolutely.
like or feel like.
And you know what that is? That's teaching you to trust your own power. Because that's what that is. Literally giving your power away to other people to fix you. Those are lessons. Those are remember you wrote that in your story before you came here? I don't trust my own personal power. So I'm gonna have this psychic come in and this chakra clear and this yoga teacher come in who's gonna try to fix me.
Yeah.
To remind me that, oh wait, only I can fix myself. And I've been to people like that. And there have been people, don't get me wrong, there are people out there who have gifts and abilities. But I do believe that those gifts and abilities can be attained by anybody if they do the work, right? So I don't believe anybody is special. I just think maybe they've done an exorbitant amount of work, or in this lifetime or carnation, they're at a space where they can hold something that appears to you to be like a gift, but it's just something you quite haven't maybe remembered yet. But yeah, it's all so interesting. It's all just so amazing. But it requires a lot of consciousness around it, and understanding and forgiveness and practice, and just remembering that we're still just all here on Earth School to learn and to remember, I mean, we can get into the modern stuff going on here with, the inappropriation of power and politics and everything that's just being shoved in our face right now, and the rise of the divine feminine and the masculine. And I mean, you guys know I will have a workshop. I know there's a lot of people that want to come to that workshop. So a girl was here the other day and we got into it, and so we will have the masculine feminine polarity integration workshop, because it's so needed. And one thing that really kind of halts me in my tracks right now is having the knowledge around why it's necessary for the divine feminine to be rising in her power, but the complete leaving out the masculine. Like, this is what I am so shocked about, is that do people realize that we all embody both energies? Are people forgetting this? Because the rise of the divine feminine includes the rise of the divine feminine and the masculine embodiment as well. So that's what's really getting me. I'm like, whoa, hold on now. All these women are rising. I get it. It's good. We need it. But why is nobody talking about that male hold the divine feminine energy as well? They are also trying to rise. And if somebody doesn't recognize that soon, we're going to go in the reverse direction, and the men are going to get more pissed. Right? So I just feel like there needs to be this level of clarity around, wait a minute, at the root of who we all are, we are androgynous beings. We hold the feminine and the masculine. It's very obvious. We know this, right? Left brain, yin yang, everything in one being. So how can we have all of this rise of the divine feminine and the women, or the bodies that are feminine, people who embody the feminine body? One, we're not recognizing that we also have masculine energy that needs to be balanced. And number two, nobody's really talking about the men, and we're kind of putting, again, certain women, this expectation on, well, the men need to hold space, and the men need to understand that this is our time now. The men need to be able to hold space and have conversations. I agree with all that, but also, who's supporting the men and rising in their divine feminine? Because right now, as we speak, men are going through the shit. They are going through the battle as well, but nobody's talking about that. All the men in my life right now are going through things, and they're struggling as well. They're deeply struggling as well, as it's all portrayed on the media that it's all about the women. The men are going through it too. Hello. They need to rise in their divine feminine as well, and that's what will create harmonious relationships and unions. Nobody is talking about this. Are you guys seeing anybody talking about this?
No.
The impact this has on the male embodiment, the feminine in their male.
I mean, I see it, and I see men going through it.
Right.
My own boyfriend, like, struggling with this whole concept. Like, he's aware of the way that he and other men behave with women or interact with women, and questioning himself, like, have I been doing things wrong? You know what I mean? Like, he's and then he has this, he luckily he's very emotionally intelligent in that he's able to express the feminine parts of himself, but he still also is getting that conflicting message from society about whether that's okay or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a confusing time, difficult time for men, a lot of men.
I think that the majority, maybe I'm incorrect, please tell me if you think so. I think the majority of women have already risen. I think that we need to be holding the space for the male to rise to meet his divine feminine. That's where I think the focus needs to be now. I think we've kind of got it. I think the women kind of got it going on. I do. I think that we can now hold the space. It's going to be the women that do transform the world, because we have to learn how to hold the proper space for the masculine. We are the ones that take in and carry. We are the ones that nurture wounds, right? We pull in, we care for. We are the ones that are going to be able to hold the space for the male collective to rise. But again, we got to get over ourselves a little bit and say, I'm already risen. I'm already powerful. Now let me help. Let me hold compassion for you to rise to.
The conversation needs to evolve from,
Yes.
this is how male energy has gone off track and what it has done, to all the men out there who are growing or nurturing the feminine within them and supporting both sexes. Let's honor that.
Yes.
Let's recognize that. And so instead of focusing on the negative, oh, look what harm has been done, now let's focus on, look at what good is happening, and let's nurture that. Let's talk about it. Let's grow that.
Yes, absolutely. It's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
We need to hold the space for the resolution. Because I do think that men are highly confused right now. I mean, I know that there are some men who are able to hold this space, and a lot of men, I think it's creating more separation. So I think that this needs to be talked about in a really big way. And it has nothing to do with me not embodying or honoring my feminine essence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if any woman wants to stand out there and give me a hard time and come in with their power about this, I will stand right up against it, because we're all androgynous beings and hold both.
Yep.
We need to realize that we both need to heal this. And it's actually the greatest, most divine gift that I have to share to the women, the feminine collective, is that you've already got it. Now, let's do some service. Let's hold the space so we can have this collective harmonization take place. You know, so I'm not saying anything that's to belittle the rise of the divine feminine at all. It's quite the opposite.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we've had a lot of years to have these conversations, like with each other, and now it's starting to become even more highly publicized and more highly spread.
Right.
And I feel like men in the conversation have been neglected.
Yes.
And it's not no one is sitting there and saying like, you also deserve to be in this conversation.
Yep.
Or we say like, well, this is what you should be doing, but then we don't want to invite them to actually have like their
Or to
opinion.
be able to hold the space for them to feel comfortable to come.
Exactly.
I mean, I you know, listen, I'm all for women's meetings and sacred spaces and this and that and the other thing, but come on now. Let's get to the real heart of the work now. Yes, we can do that all we want, but why are we not? We want our men to be a certain way, but yet we're not willing to hold the space for them.
That's right. If we start to become oppressive
Right.
as a female energy,
Then we
and
will
we are only doing what we
Yes.
were resisting, which is the oppression we felt as females. So,
Right. And we don't need to have that polarity to integrate.
right, we don't want to go to the other, flip a 180.
Yeah, we don't need
wanna-
1,000
we want to
years
bring
of
this
men
back to
being-
the middle. We want
Right.
balance.
Yes.
Right. And that's one thing I do see is a lot of people rising up with this energy of women, okay, back off men, women are taking over now. When can the women take over? Like, be careful. Be careful because, again, another inappropriation of power and not full, true, authentic integration. You need to be a little wiser about this and get out of your ego. Yes, I get it. You felt oppressed personally, and you're very excited for this rise of the divine feminine. I get it. I get it. I'm a woman. Get it. But let's not create another 1,000 years of oppression on the other end.
Right.
Right? Oh, that needs to be the next workshop. We're not talking about this already, but like this needs to be publicized.
Yeah.
And I think men would be so appreciative because they're ready. I do feel that they're ready.
Mm-hmm.